All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you guys for coming in and joining us for our provider meeting. I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping items. This is Kenneth Franklin with the ELC. I'm just going to go over a few housekeeping items with everyone real quick, and then I will turn it over to Mark, and we will officially get this provider meeting started. So we are being recorded. So if you do miss something, you can always go back and rewatch this. We'll be sending out a link probably tomorrow to the webinar. So if you have someone else or another provider or friend or staff that you'd like to watch, feel free to click that link and share it, and go back and see if you can get any questions, or see if there's any questions or answers or anything answered in the presentation. So first, we will be doing questions and answers. So there is a Q&A box, should be on your screen. It says Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to type those in to that box. We are going to be looking at those questions and answers, and we have a section on the agenda that specifically for questions and answers. So we'll be reading those and going over those, and then we'll also take those questions and type up some answers as well and send those out with the link tomorrow. So you'll have those as well. So feel free to ask those throughout throughout the presentation, and we'll get to those at the end. Also, there is a raise your hand function as well. So if once we get to that Q&A section as well, if we've answered everything in the box, then I'll ask, if we have any other questions, you can raise your hand and we can allow you to speak, and you can ask your question out loud if you'd like, and we can try to answer those as best we can. But if you answer your question out loud, you will now be on the recording, so we will forever hear your question. And so that function is available. There is also a chat box. So if you want to chat amongst to the panelists or to all attendees, you can actually put that in there. But if you do have a question, we would ask you to ask it in the Q&A section of the program. So we will also have a couple polls for you guys, question polls for you guys to answer. When those pop up, just answer those on the screen, and then we will share those results with you. And so right now, just want to make sure everybody's hearing me. If you can hear me right now, everything sounds good, then can you go ahead and just raise your hand for me, please? All right. Perfect. All right, I'm going to lower everybody's hand. Sounds like everybody can hear me. If you can see the agenda on the screen, can you just raise your hand as well, so we know that everybody can see the agenda on the screen? All right, looks like we're good to go there too. All right, I'm going to lower everybody's hand again. All right, Mark, we are ready when you are.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Gosh, I don't even know where to begin. It's kind of amazing with what everybody has gone through. I know that on behalf of the ELC, there have been a million things that have happened to all of us over the course of the last few months. But it's good to have the opportunity to get staff together and present the information to everyone. And we hope that you find today's meeting helpful. And if nothing else, maybe it will open up a little bit of conversation to start thinking a little more down the road with any obligations or responsibilities you may have or we may have to help you. So I want to just start by saying that I hope that you as a business owner have fared as well as you can at this point. I hope that it sounds as though we've all managed to keep our children pretty safe. I think Cheryl and I have just had the conversation in the last day or so that we've only experienced, we've experienced now 2 of you providers that have had some contact issues with COVID-19 in the course of this week. But it sounds like up until now, we've done a really good job keeping those issues and cases isolated so that we haven't had any rampant serious concerns where DCF or the health department has come in and shut providers down. So kudos to you all for doing a really, really good job through this. I think it's important for not just our staff, but for your staffs and your organizations and your children and parents and families and all of the stakeholders throughout our entire community, that we recognize that the cases are on a rise now. Now, whether it's because we're conducting more tests or whether it's because we've laxed our social distancing and many more businesses are beginning to open and, you know, the stores are opening and people are getting closer, you know, things haven't changed. And, you know, the virus certainly hasn't changed. The ability to contain it hasn't changed. So we've all got to do what we can to make sure that we're being very diligent on that, because, you know, we started in the beginning back in March, where we had said that the ELC is not an authority when it comes time to closing down or not closing down. Those are all through DCF or through the CDC, the health departments and those kind of folks. But, you know, now is not the time for anybody to drop their guards, because, you know, all you need is one case or one possible case, and then your world will turn upside down as a provider again, because you're being shut down and your parents scramble and your children are going to be displaced and all of those things. So let's keep it diligent and let's keep doing what we have been doing, because we've been doing a great job. I know our staff in many cases has stayed very closely connected to you as providers. And based on all of the reports that we have gotten back from the ELC, from all of the providers and the organizations throughout our community, it doesn't look as though this pandemic has hit any two of you the same way. We've got some of you that have come through this fairly unscathed with a small drop in attendance, and we've got other ones of you that still to this day are struggling to find a time or a date to open. And we get it, we understand it, and we continue to lend a hand in any way we can to be supportive of you. So, you know, I want to make sure that if you haven't been reading, you know, we still are putting out our weekly or our daily updates have been dropped back to Tuesdays and Fridays. So I would ask that if you have not been reading those, make sure you read those, because anytime we get anything new from OEL or any other directives, we certainly put those in there. But today we're going to go through each of our departments, and our departments will also provide you the necessary information that you may need. And if it does draw additional questions, please feel free to put those in the box that Kenneth described. So a little bit of an update, and we did say it out yesterday that, you know, of course, our 69 school district sites that we contract with remain closed as part of their schools. But of the 270 private provider sites that we have across Polk County, 212 of you have opened again. That leaves less than 70 on any given day that do not are not serving children. So it is rebounding. We are coming back. And I think as the governor's waves to opening continue to rise or to continue to open, the enrollments of our children will continue to rise. And for those of you that have not opened, I think it's important that you start thinking about what your plans may look like to reopen. Even if you don't have that date set, I think it's important that you start thinking about what that's going to look like. And my advice to you would be that reach back to us, because we have come through this walk with several providers that have gone from some very desperate measures to having regained their children and come back through and have opened back up. So as a provider or as a resource to providers, certainly we can help you. If nothing else, we can certainly help you by maybe talking to some other providers that have lived what you may be getting ready to live through. So we've done a lot, and certainly there's no need to reinvent the wheel in some cases if we can help you do that. So just kind of a piece from the Office of Early Learning. You know, when the K-12 schools shut down earlier this year, one of the biggest concerns has been whether or not learning at the K-12 issue is going to be a problem, and whether or not children are going to experience learning gaps, and whether or not the virtual instruction that K-12 had is going to be enough to keep them on track for their standards and to keep them on track for their school grades. And even though their assessments were thrown out, just like many of our assessments have been thrown out, the concern is still arising to the quality of instruction that is occurring in K-12. And that conversation is now trickling down to, you know, the preschool years and what's happening in our school readiness and VPK programs, and what's the level of quality that our early learning coalitions across the state can commit to assure that these children that do go back into schools next year, or that do advance from 3-year-olds to 4-year-olds to 5-year-olds, that they truly are gaining quality instruction through this. So it's a balancing act. We know it can be difficult because there are so many other things going on in society right now that certainly are distractions from it. But you know, it's critical that all of our providers and all of our early childhood teachers across the state, I'm not just talking about Polk County, but I'm talking about the state. It's critical that they recognize that this level of quality is going to have to remain, because there are conversations out there right now. They have not turned into specific action items or anything like that, but there are questions right now that are occurring at the state level where they're asking about whether or not some of the providers that have been on the low end of the performance scales or the functioning scales, whether or not they're using these opportunities to conduct professional development, and they're using these opportunities in many cases where maybe they're not serving children, but they are being paid. Are they setting themselves up to do things that are going to increase their records for improvement? So I think you owe it to yourself to ask yourself, if the state were to come down today and say, hey, you know, if you happen to be on a lower tier, are you doing what you can do during this time to prepare yourself for greater quality instruction? And that's just something you answer yourself. Like I said, we haven't received anything from anybody, but the conversations are out there because the concerns right now very much are across the state that this pandemic is going to possibly decrease the quality of instruction that's out there. And I tell you that because it's just something that everybody needs to put on their mind, that we've got to assure that we're providing quality instruction to these children. So it's just something that's come up, and it is what it is. So briefly, I'm going to touch on just a couple other things because I know we've got a full agenda, but you know, we've got a lot of money through these grants that we have sent out, and we have tried to do them expeditiously as possible. We continue to get various dollars and finalizing those kinds of things. And I think we're doing a really, really good job with trying to answer some of your needs. We are expecting that the Office of Early Learning is still in the process of divvying up a pretty good chunk of federal CARES Act dollars. And we anticipate that sometime in the near future that we may be getting an additional allocation that we can bring down to you as well. So rest assured that on behalf of Polk County, that any dollars that we've gotten in, we have been pretty much on the cutting edge. And if you've known other providers in neighboring counties, you've probably heard them say at various times that we tend to be getting the money out a little bit faster than most of the other organizations that we know of, because we know you're in a crunch. So we'll keep doing that. We're hoping to hear about these federal CARES dollars in the near future. And then finally, I want to touch on the second agenda item for me is the OEL surveys and closure status. If you did experience a closure through the month of May at any point in time where you reported through OEL and through us an official closure of your site during the month of May, you are required to fill out that survey. And I think they're hoping to have that into the portal next week. But make sure you fill that out, because if you experienced a closure and you don't fill that out, there's a good chance they're going to withhold that money. Now, we've also, going into this pandemic, made it very clear to you that OEL said that they would be covering expenses or covering payments to providers, whether you were opened or not, and whether or not you had, regardless of your attendance, whether or not your children attended or not. And we've gotten that guarantee through June service period. So, you know, of course, you've got, if you're closed, you've got to make sure you fill out that survey. But that does not necessarily offer anything beyond June 30th. So we really do not know from OEL what the status is going to be across the state and whether or not it is the intention for them to continue paying for providers who have closed. So my recommendation would be, if you think there's a chance that you're going to be opening, make sure you let us know that you're going to be opening so we can kind of put you on that list. And in the event that OEL were to say, hey, you still have 70 providers in Polk County that we continue to pay that aren't opening, my gut feeling is, and certainly this is not official and I'm almost hesitant to say it, but my gut feeling is I don't think OEL is going to be the kind of organization that's going to say we're just going to continue to pay closed providers forever. I think that somewhere down the line, we're going to get some kind of directive that says either you need to be open or you need to tell us at least of a date that you anticipate being open. So I would not be surprised if we do get some directive within the next month about that, but we have not received anything officially that pertains to whether or not they will be continuing to pay or stop paying those providers that have closed, and particularly those that closed in February or March and have yet to reopen. So I'll leave it at that. There is not an answer. I don't want to put the fear in anybody that it's going to create a problem because we don't know that. But I do believe that as the state continues to open, I think that everybody needs to look at their business models and make some decisions about that. And it will also quickly just touch on that whole piece where I know we're serving a lot of first responders and we have allowed those children to come into the seats for that. Make sure that you're figuring out in your own organizations, you know, your capacity issues. That's going to be a very big deal. If indeed the market starts to flood with children again and children all start coming back and the questions start arising to whether or not you keep one child in who was in or a new child in that just got in. So run those comments and questions through your quality staff and let's see if we can help in any way. But I think that is also something that you need to be cognizant of. So I'm going to leave it at that. Make sure that if you are closed and you plan to open, make sure you let us know. And if there are any changes for any reason, please make sure you let us know, because contractually, if you're not serving children, we've got to know about it. So that's enough for me. I'm going to pass the baton on to Cheryl Kelly for CCDF grants. And thank you all very much. And I will say goodbye at the end.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Can you hear me okay? Okay.
Yes.
And I think before I get started, we're going to do a quick poll. Kenneth, did you want to pull up the first poll? I think it's going to take us just a few seconds to do this. If we can get it up on the screen, I'll also read it out loud. Okay, and this would be helpful for us if you all could go in and answer this. At what capacity are children currently attending your site? The first choice is 0 to 25%. Second choice, 26 to 50%. Third is 51 to 75%. And then fourth, 76 to 100%. So based on looking at your enrollment, how many children are attending? We'll wait just a few seconds and then I think we'll have the answer to the poll. Is that right, Kenneth?
Did we want, Cheryl, did we want closed providers to complete this at a 0%, or did we only want to know open providers?
I think this was for those that are open. Yes, if you're open. Thanks, Mark.
Correct. Yep, if you're open.
Sorry about that.
Got about 84% have voted. We got about 10 left. All right, we'll end it there. 62 of the 72.
Okay. So it looks like 37% of you, that was the highest, said 26 to 50%. So under half. 25% for 0 to 25, 24 for 51 to 75%, and 14% said 76 to 100. So thank you all for answering that. Again, that will be helpful to us as we continue to work with you all and figure out how to best support your needs and your, as we're working with families even, working with families, working with you all, how we can best support you. These are important questions for us. And we know that not every provider is on the call, but this certainly does help us. So moving right into the other things on the agenda. So the next thing is the CCDF grants. And I just wanted to, first of all, thank everyone. Mark mentioned we've rolled out several grants over the last few months, and I feel like they've definitely been back to back. We started with a universal health and safety grant, as many of you know, as most of you know, which was intended to assist you with initial cleaning supplies and things like that to help you and your staff make sure that you were meeting the guidelines of the CDC and Department of Health. And so thank you all for submitting that. And I think we turned that one around pretty quickly in the very beginning, which was really great. And certainly I think, like Mark said, we were really working with OEL, but we were pushing and we got things out really quick. I think in comparison to maybe other coalitions or even those in surrounding counties, which was kind of interesting. Then we had the 3 CCDF grants. And at this point, the first was infrastructure. So that one we got out first, and that one has been done. That one was completed and you all have been paid. If you qualified for that one, you should already know that, right? The second was the health and safety. So this one was the one that the deadline was Monday of this week. And it closed at 5 o'clock on Monday. Everybody that submitted, your names have all been submitted for payment. And then I think when John talks here in just a few minutes, he's going to touch on those payments. I know we hadn't put the dollar amount yet, but he'll give those specifics in just a few minutes. But thank you again for everybody who submitted. The last is the CCDF, the Child Care Development Fund is what that stands for, just so everybody knows. But it was the professional development grant that we put out. And that one is the biggest one probably in terms of what's involved. The funding for that was limited. And I want to say, again, many of you, we saw a lot of interest in professional development, which is very exciting for us. It's awesome. There's a lot of different courses that were available through that grant. However, we did have to close it out, and we do have a waiting list. I believe we have over 200 providers on the waiting list, or individuals on the waiting list for that grant. If we find that we have additional funds, if those who have applied are not able to take as many courses as what they submitted for, and we're going to be monitoring this over the next few weeks, we will be taking names from the wait list. So it was a kind of a first come, first serve, and we will be in touch with you. If you're not clear about whether or not you were accepted, your site or your staff were accepted, please reach out to us. Nancy Moses and Blanca Fernandez are working very closely together on that. I know the majority of the emails are coming from Nancy Moses, and you're welcome to contact her if you're not 100% sure of whether or not you were accepted. I know there's been a lot of emails, and so it's, you know, we would definitely understand if maybe you missed an email somewhere in the list of the ones that come from the ELC. But for those who do know that you're in, one of the things I wanted to remind everyone is that any of the participants, any of your staff that are in it have until June 30th to take the approved courses. After that, once everything is done, so June 30th is the last day, that means that the certificates for the trainings have to be dated before June 30th or before. You have then until July 10th to submit those certificates to us at the coalition, and then we will process. There's going to be a lot involved in processing all of that, and payments would be expected, I think we put in our email, on or around August 10th. So there is quite a timeline coming up related to that grant, and I just wanted to remind those that are in it of kind of what's involved. If you have any questions along the way, you're welcome to call Nancy Moses or Blanca Fernandez. Nancy's in the Lakeland office and Blanca is in the Winter Haven office. So thanks again to everyone for participating. And as Mark said, if additional dollars become available, if we're able to roll out additional grants, we will certainly put that information out as soon as possible. Next on the list, let's see. I'm going to talk about school readiness curriculum. And I know we've mentioned this in meetings previously, and it seemed at that time, I think at our last meeting, it seemed like June 30th was a long way away. And now we're coming up on June 30th. But the current list, current approved statewide list for school readiness curriculum is ending. It will no longer be valid after June 30th. So it's really, really important that you are aware of whether or not your chosen curriculum is on the newest list. And Kenneth, if you could put that up on the screen really quick, the website. Oh, actually we can do the poll first. Let's do that first. So if you don't mind helping us out again, this says, do you know if your current curriculum is on the new statewide approved curriculum list? Choices are yes, no, or what? There's a new list. Hopefully you're not going to use that third choice. But if you can answer yes or no for us on that, that would be really great. That'll help us know whether or not we need to focus a little bit on curriculum. We'll just take a few seconds on that one. Okay, so good. Majority of you, 69%, said yes. And thank you to those who said, what, there's a new list? At least you're being honest, or maybe you're just playing along. That's okay. So for those who said no, or if you're not sure, we really want to make sure that we can help you if you need to choose something, choose a new curriculum, or if you need to double check the list. So there is a website, Kenneth, if you can put that up really quick on OEL's website. The list is there for you. Let's see. I don't know if it's showing totally. There we go. So there is, when you go to their website and you go under providers, there will be something that says resources, I believe, and you click on that. Once you hit this page that says school readiness curriculum approval, you'll go to the middle where it says 2020 approved school readiness curricula. And when you hit that link, that'll take you to the new list. And again, most of the bigger curriculum, like creative curriculum, those types are on there, Beyond Centers and Circle Time. But there were a few that I believe came off of the list. And because there are so many, it's a lot for all of us to keep up with. And certainly I know we often answer a lot of questions. So please contact your quality specialist if you have any questions. At this point, the list does expire, as I said, on June 30th. The state has granted you an extension to September 30th to choose a new curriculum at this point. At this time, but it would be great if we could have everything in place and everything done as far, by July 1, if possible. If you need more time, you do have, like I said, until September 30th. Okay, next is a reminder about child screenings, and that's the ASQs, ages and stages. And if you all have been reading the emails that have been coming out from Mark, that were coming out daily, now coming out twice a week, we've sent quite a few reminders about this. But as of the, I think it was the March 17th executive order put out by the governor, all of the screenings and assessments for the remainder of the fiscal year, so from about March 16th through June 30th, they were all canceled or no longer required, in other words. We've gotten a lot of questions about this along the way. So if you're a provider that you're open or you've been open and you've already asked, you've already heard us say this, if the children are attending and you are open, we are going to encourage you to continue the screenings. At this point, we don't expect that we would need to go back and do any that were due prior or during this 2 or 3 month period, but it's a possibility. So with that in mind, if you're able to complete the screenings, please do so. The same would be for anything related to assessment. And now at this point, we're a little bit past that, I know, but I do want to touch on that. So those of you who participated in Teaching Strategies Gold with us for this year, you know that we have finalized the last checkpoint. So we are done with that. And I believe John's going to talk on a little bit about the payment piece on that in a moment. But what I would ask is that if everyone could continue to watch your emails, we are going to be touching base for the new fiscal year. So when we talk about July 1 and beyond, if you're going to continue with us, continue using Gold, you know that there are some forms that we require as a coalition so that we know who's participating. We can match you up, look at your contract, look at our programmatic forms, make sure everything matches, and we know who's in the system for next year. So those forms will be coming out soon, and we'll need you to take a look, sign some things, and get them back to us as soon as possible. So please stay in touch with us as far as that goes. We would really appreciate that. Next, class observations. So just like child screening and assessments, class observations were also put on hold, as you all know. Our staff we're still not out in the field. We're not able to visit you, and we miss seeing everyone. But at this point, we've not been able to conduct any observations past, well, about the second week of March. So with that said, the assessments are critical when we talk about contracts, because as you know, there was a requirement for a class score in order to contract. We know that OEL is really looking at this right now, and Kenneth is going to talk a little bit about contracts. There's still a lot up in the air, but typically we know that class piece ties into the contract now. What I think I need to just make sure I touch on today is that there have been some changes in rule. So while we've kind of experienced a hold or a lag in conducting the assessments, while that's been happening, there were some new rules that went into place. So effective May 5th, there's a new rule, Rule 6M 4.741, if you want to look it up, that talks about program assessment minimum thresholds. And I know, again, we've mentioned this before, but it passed. And so whereas in the current year for class, you needed a 2.5 in order to contract with the coalition for minimum assessment composite score. Moving into the next year, according to the rule, you would need a 3.5 in order to contract as far as a composite score for your site. There is an exception written right into the rule for the 2021 year, which states that a provider who scores 3.0 to 3.49 and does not receive a minimum score of 3.5, even on a voluntary second assessment, if you requested one, if you didn't do well the first time, you asked for it again and you still didn't get it, you could still contract as long as you had between a 3.0 and a 3.49, as long as you were willing to go on a quality improvement plan with us. Again, that's just an exception for this coming year. Now, with all of that said, again, it's on hold. I feel like, you need to be aware of the information, but we're not exactly sure how it's all going to play out. So again, stay in touch with us. We'll continue to share information as we receive it, but just know that there's been some waivers when it comes to some of the rules, but there haven't been waivers in other instances. So we're working close with OEL, and we're trying to help everyone out. The majority of the annual assessments for this year, for many of you, we were already done. We did them before we went out due to COVID. However, a lot of them are done in the spring. So if you are one of those providers, more than likely you will be one of the first ones that will be done when we're able to return to the classrooms and do the assessments. The last thing I would mention in regard to that is if you were to look at the new rule, for the year after next, the minimum contracting threshold score goes up even a little bit more. So it goes to 4.0. So again, I'm just putting that out there. I want you all to have that information, and we'll continue to talk about it as we move forward. I hope that's helpful to some, because we have had questions about it. Okay, moving on, the quality performance system. I think everybody is very familiar with, or should be at this point, unless you're a newer provider. And certainly if you're newer, we can help you with knowing a little bit more about QPS. But just a reminder in regard to that system, that is one where you have to go in as a provider and keep it up to date with especially your staffing. We need to know who your teachers are and if you have changes in staffing at your centers. The reason is that the information for class and honestly, lots of other things, including most recently, some of the grants that we were doing, is the information is pulled over from that system. If we don't have the most current information on you and your staff, then you know that we've had to come back and probably in some cases ask you to update that. So please, if you can, remember any changes to go in and put those changes in that system for us. If you have questions again on that, please contact your quality specialist and they can assist you with that. Last is the calming kits from Discovery Source. So as part of provider appreciation this year, the coalition partnered with Discovery Source, and they are the creators of what are called the calming kits. And we purchased a calming kit for every provider, at least one for every site. So we're really excited that we were able to mail or have those shipped directly to many of your sites. If your site was open, you should have already received it. And if that's the case and you haven't already, please send us your packing slip because we do need those. We do need to track the packing slips, just like we do with any other materials that are delivered to you on site. For those of you who didn't receive a kit yet, we weren't able to mail all the kits out because when we ordered them a few months ago, or several weeks ago, a lot of sites weren't open yet. Your status still showed as closed. So those kits were shipped to our office. And at this point, we've scheduled two different, I think an email went out yesterday. We've scheduled two different distribution times next week. So next Tuesday, which is, I believe, the 17th, we will have from 12 to 2, we'll have, is that the 16th? I don't remember the date. Anyway, next Tuesday, we will, from 12 to 2, you can come by the Lakeland office to pick up your kit. You'll just drive up, no need to get out of the car. We will have our masks on, we'll have gloves, we'll just hand you the kit and you can drive away. It will be really simple. We'll also have one the following day, Wednesday, from 12 to 2. I'm sorry.
Thursday, yeah.
Wednesday, Thursday. Oh my goodness. I'm sorry, you guys. Wednesday, Thursday next week. Wednesday in Lakeland, Thursday in Winter Haven. Please check your email to make sure I have it all right. But we are asking you as well to RSVP. So if you can email back to Sheila Chambers, Sheila is tracking that. We want to make sure that we have all of the kits ready that are going to be picked up and we know which sites they are going to be going to. So we also have, while you're picking up, some VPK bags that we've ordered that we will eventually get out to all providers, but those of you who are picking up your kits, we will be distributing those to you as well. So that's kind of fun, kind of exciting. And we do hope that the calming kits, there are a couple of trainings. I believe we are offering one this month. It's already filled up from what I understand as far as attendance. but so that you know how to implement the kit with the children. Discovery Sources providing some virtual trainings for us. The second training has not yet been scheduled. We were waiting for more providers to be able to have them in hand before we schedule those trainings. But we look forward to those. We will be on the training along with you. So we'll be learning all about the kits right alongside all of you, which will be great. The last thing before I turn it over to Diane, I wanted to mention it's not on the agenda, but Kenneth, can you pull up the Music Together flyer really quick? We are working, we did a pilot program this year with the folks at Music Together, which is a really neat music program. And what they're going to do, we'll have some more information later on the pilot that we did with a few of you in the Winter Haven area. We would like for more folks to learn about Music Together. So they're offering for our coalition as well as the coalition ELC of Pasco Hernando County. They're just doing a little informational webinar, and we would like for folks to join. I don't know if you can see much of the flyer there, but we've also sent it out via email. And if you need more information, please email Sheila about that. That one is going to be, I believe, on the 25th. I can't see the full flyer in front of me, but good. Sheila says thumbs up, June 25th. All right. And now I will pass it on to Diane. If you have any questions, we will answer them at the end. Thank you.
Okay, excuse me. Just want to go over a few items. We've received several phone calls from providers, so we thought this would be the perfect opportunity to go through some of the questions that were being asked. You would have seen in the beginning of the month, the parent copay parent fees are still being waived for the month of June. We haven't heard anything if it will continue into July, but right now for the month of June, the parent copays will continue to be waived. For redeterminations, we've been receiving calls from providers requesting us to update or redetermine cases. All redeterminations from March 15th through May 15th have been extended until July 15th. Although we continue to request the parents to complete the redetermination, per guidance from OEL, we cannot terminate any child. So please continue. Any children that you see have a past due redetermination, please continue to allow them to attend your site unless you hear otherwise from the coalition. And the next item I have is provider terminations, and we know that you do have the capabilities of terminating children for non-attendance. However, as I stated previously, we cannot terminate children from care. If you have a child that you wish to terminate for non-attendance, please contact one of our managers so they can follow up with the parents. The managers you can call directly. I have their phone numbers for you. Hopefully you have a pen available. For Mary Baker, you can call her direct line 863-288-2119, or you can call Angela DeFalco. Her direct phone number is 863-577-2465, or you can call the main office and one of the receptionists can forward you to one of them. We've also had several providers asking that we update the child care certificate for school-age children as it shows part-time for the summer. This is an OEL issue. We've sent up a help desk ticket we did last year. We've sent it again this year. It's something that doesn't show on the child care certificate that the school-age child is eligible for full-time in the summertime, but they haven't updated the system yet. So as of June 1st, you should see on your attendance sheets that all your school-age children now should be on a full-time calendar. So there shouldn't be a problem with the attendance as far as that goes. However, if you come across a child that is a school-age child and is only showing part-time and that child is attending full-time, please call one of the managers so we can review the case to make sure that they're on the correct schedule or that the parent is attending the correct schedule. And then as a reminder, the flip did occur, like I said, as of June 1st, so you should be able to see that. One of the other items we see is that we've noticed, we have providers calling us, and I know I went over this previously. If you are unable to see the child care certificate, it is probably because the parent has not accepted the enrollment. Please request for the parent to log into their account and accept the enrollment. Children that are on, we call it a pending parent acceptance. On your attendance sheet, you'll see that they are listed first on your attendance roster, and then they'll have an initial status of PND. That means the parent had not signed or accepted the enrollment or signed their certificate. So if you see that, just remind the parent to go ahead and log into their account to sign their certificate. It is part of the requirement of the program. Especially now we've enrolled a lot of our ESS families, and we've noticed we have a lot of the ESS families that have not signed their certificate. So if you're seeing that on your attendance sheet, just give a kind reminder to go in and sign that certificate. We've also had providers calling concerning transfers. As a reminder, if a parent requests a transfer, the parent would need to provide a paid in full receipt. Per the rule, the provider shall provide written notice of co-payments due, the co-payment due date. The parent co-payment shall be collected within 10 calendar days of provider's payment due date. The provider must give the parent a receipt for each co-payment made by the parent and retain a receipt for all child care co-payments. The provider shall document outstanding parent co-payment balances. The provider shall provide written notification to parents of current outstanding co-payment balance within 15 calendar days of the provider's payment due date. This notification shall be provided at least on a monthly basis as long as there is a co-payment balance. There's been several occasions where we've contacted a provider and there's a large co-payment balance, and we're asking that you please just follow up with the parents, make sure you're letting them know what their co-payment, when it's due, and just making sure you're collecting that. Even now, we haven't had parents paying co-payments since April 1st. However, when a parent is calling to transfer, we're still hearing there's outstanding co-payments. So you may want to see any of those that have not had to pay their co-payment, maybe start setting up some type of payment arrangement so they can get caught up. Okay. And then let me see. So a parent cannot or may not transfer his or her child to another school readiness program provider until the parent has submitted documentation from the current provider to the Early Learning Coalition that the parent has satisfactorily fulfilled the co-payment obligation. Satisfactory fulfillment of the co-payment obligation, that's the parent fees, is defined as immediate payment of the outstanding co-payment obligation or establish a repayment plan for the outstanding co-payment. So we try to work with the families, we try to work with the providers, just trying to see what we can do to help the families so that, they're not leaving a balance behind, but they're able to transfer their child if they need to transfer the child. And then once we receive the co-payment, then we'll go ahead and verify the information on it and go ahead and complete the transfer as long as everything is good. And then the last thing I have on my list, if you noticed on your attendance that you're missing a child from your roster, please contact the manager. There's several times it'll be a month or 2 months later that we'll get a phone call, this child isn't on my attendance, wasn't on it last month, and we have to do adjustments, and that kind of takes a lot of time for us to go ahead and do that. And sometimes whatever the case is, OEL may change a status for a child, and then the enrollment doesn't get put back in, and that happens when they're changing their age group. So just if you notice a child is missing, just please reach out to us so that we can make sure that we get that child put back on your attendance and that you're being paid properly for that child. And I think that's all that I have. So I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Kenneth. Thank you.
All right. Hey, everybody. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a lot of the burning questions that we've been getting about contracts. Before I do, I just wanted to share a couple quick notes that just kind of little tidbits that we wanted to share with you. First, I did want to mention our social media pages and Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. If you are not currently liking those pages, please go out and do so. We've been putting out a ton of information, activities, things like that via our Facebook page and Instagram that you guys can utilize, or if you're closed or if you have children that aren't attending, maybe your parents could utilize. So, be sure to like us there. You can even pass that information along to your parents for them to like so that they can get some of that information as well. We also share some important updates there. We also are, sharing different things throughout our child care provider community through that you guys are doing that are just, awesome. I actually have, I'm going to change the screen real quick. I'm going to share something with you guys that happened about a month or so ago. But we actually had a provider. Let me see if I can move this up so you can see it. Do a program, do a activity that was actually shared on Twitter from the Spanish embassy. So the ambassador of Spain actually wrote us a nice note back, letter back, and posted it on their Twitter page. So this is a child care provider right here in Polk County that's being posted on the Twitter page for the Spanish embassy. So anything that you guys can do that is unique, or you just think it's a really, really cool activity, feel free to reach out to us. You can shoot that email to marketing@elcpolk.org. Again, that's marketing@elcpolk.org. And we can get that, obviously we can't do everybody, but we can do as many as we can. And we can put that up on our social media pages, and you can share it. And I know a lot of times I see parents where they see their kid and they're like, "Oh, there's my kid on the ELC page." So it's really fun thing to do, and we're trying to highlight you guys as well as the activities and programs that we're putting on, but highlight you guys, which is good for your business as well. So just wanted to throw that out there real quick. And then also I did have a few other things pertaining to your contracts and different things that go on with we found that a lot of people are getting locked out of their OEL portal accounts. And so basically a reason why you're getting locked out of your portal account sometimes is there's a 15-minute lockout rule. And if you failed your login attempt because you didn't know your password, or maybe you hit remember my password, and then after that 90 days, that password expired, and then you hit log in with that remember my password function, it'll lock you out. So we just would recommend don't use that remember your password thing. Know what your passwords are. But if you do lock yourself out of that, just maybe wait 15 minutes. You can try again. Or if for some reason you do lock yourself out, you can always call our office and extension 216. That's Bernie Wade. She can help you unlock that portal account. Also, provider profiles. I'm going to go ahead and talk about that real quick. Provider profiles. Those profiles, if your profile for 2021 or even 1920, your current profile is not active, you need to check that, make sure that profile is active. That's going to play a big role in you being able to complete your contracts for 2021. So if that is not active, then I would look at that. You can reach out to us, to Karen Hallman or contract manager at ELCPolk.org, and see what we need to do. If your profile has been rejected, there's probably a note in your login screen that shows you exactly what needs to be done. But if you do have any questions, please reach out to us if your profile is not active, as we need to get those completed as soon as possible. All right, so contracts. So school readiness contracts. I wish I had breaking news to tell you. Unfortunately, we have not received word from the Office of Early Learning as to a definitive response to what we're going to do for for our 2021 school readiness contract. So we are in a waiting game at this moment. We have heard that the intention through the state is that we will be doing an extension of our 1920 SR contracts. So if you currently have a 1920 SR contract, we expect that we will be able to just extend those contracts into 2021, and you won't have to go through the entire contract process again. I'm assuming, again, this is my assumption, I'm assuming that there will be some type of amendment or a one-page document or something like that that we'll have to have everyone sign if it comes to that, because at this point in time, those contracts have not been put into EFS modernization or the provider services portal for you guys to be able to complete. So we anticipate that it'll just be an extension over your 1920 SR contract. If you're a brand new, or if you're a provider out there that doesn't currently contract with us for school readiness, hopefully by that time we'll have a 2021 contract available for you. If not, then we can sign a 1920 contract, and then we'll do the same process, that amendment process to do that extension. So that is what we know right now, latest and greatest for school readiness contracts. As soon as we get information from the Office of Early Learning, we will pass that information along to you so that you have as much time as possible to get those items completed. I know we're already at the 10th, and the contract is set to end on the 30th, so that's 20 days. So we're hoping that we get some information, some solid information sooner rather than later. Okay, so that's the deal for SR contracts as of right now. Again, though, make sure your profiles are active. That's going to help us if it does come down to the end of the month and your profile's not active, then we can't even do anything at that point. So make sure your profiles are active. Okay. VPK contracts. VPK contracts have been placed in the provider services portal, so they are there. We are putting together a set of instructions right now that we will be sending out probably early to middle of next week. And there will be a webinar much like this one here that you will be required to watch, and you'll have to sign something attesting that you've watched that webinar. Essentially, it's our contract meeting, and there will be instructions in the email that's sent out as far as what you need to do. Again, first and foremost, your profile has to be active. Then we will initiate your VPK application, which is the 10, 11A, and 11B. And we will initiate the VPK contract for execution. Now, we understand that there are a lot of questions regarding VPK. One of them, I know a lot of you start your VPK program in conjunction with the school board calendar. The school board calendar is currently published right now. Due to the current pandemic, who knows if they're going to stick with that or move that schedule around. We don't know the answer to that at this point in time. That being said, you do not have to follow the school board calendar. So if you make the decision to start your program on August the 10th, when the current published calendar is, then you can start your program on August the 10th. So that you'll have to fill that information out on your VPK application. Another problem that question that we've had from providers is, well, I don't know who my teachers are because we've been closed. I don't know who's coming back. Who do I put on my VPK application as my lead teacher, my aide, and all of that good stuff. So we would just ask you to do the best you can there, fill that information out, and submit your application with your schedule and your teachers. So you are allowed to make changes to your application as far as your teachers go. So put the best answers you have there. As far as your calendar, you are allowed to make 2 revisions to that calendar. So if you put August the 10th now and the school board decides to say maybe start in September and you want to change that, then you are allowed to change your VPK calendar to September, but it will count as one of those 2 as of right now. So we will start activating those applications and those contracts later this week, and we will send out, and beginning of next week, and we will send out a VPK, specific VPK contract instructions next week. There will be a link to a video. You'll have to attest that you have watched that video, and then you can begin filling out your VPK application and your contract. And I will just throw this out there as well. I know Karen's about to go in a little bit more detail about VPK providers on probation, which we have quite a few more this year due to the changes in the readiness rates and things like that. But you do have to have that VPK, or that provider on probation, your improvement plan. You do have to have that approved by the coalition at least 30 days before you start your program. So if you were planning on starting, August 10th, that means you have to have an approved improvement plan, in place by July 10th. So, we sent an email out a couple days ago asking you that if that is the case and you are a POP, please go ahead and you plan on starting by August 10th, and please go ahead and submit that improvement plan by, I believe it was June 26th is what we stated, so that we can begin reviewing those improvement plans and have time to, send it back to you if there are any corrections that need to be made. So just be sure to get that into us as soon as possible if you are a provider on probation. So obviously your VPK program cannot start before that public school. So, you can set it right now for August the 10th. So if it does come up and they change that, then we'll have to look into that and see if you are required to change it. But at this point in time, we'll accept it as long as it's the start of the school date. So, so that is VPK contracts. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Karen, and Karen can go into a little bit more depth about the requirements for those VPK providers on probation. Karen?
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I was just answering a question real quick. So I'm going to talk a little bit about providers on probation. So for those of you that aren't familiar with VPK, because I know we have some school readiness, I'll just give you a little quick snippet of what that means. So for kindergarten, when children go off to kindergarten, so law requires a screening for all of the public schools for those kindergartners children for the first 30 instructional days of school. So the flickers is what you'll hear, the Florida Kindergarten Readiness Screener. So under that, they've chosen the STAR Early Literacy. So children have to meet a certain satisfactory rate and those providers in order for them to have received that, like I said, that satisfactory rate. So a provider would remain on probation. So that goes back to the VPK. So the VPK provider, for when your children go off from VPK to kindergarten and they get screened those first 30 days using the STAR Early Literacy. So where that score fell, so if you received a score of 60 or higher, you wouldn't be considered a provider on probation. But if you received a score that was below 60, so 59 or lower, you would be what would be considered a provider on probation, or the acronym that they use is a POP. So with that being said, a provider would remain on probation until they meet the minimum rate adopted by the office. So with that being said, and I'm saying that for the providers on probation, so if you were deemed a provider on probation, all of you would know who you are. You've all been contacted. We've sent out emails. You've been in communication with Danielle. So if, as a provider on probation, if you're not looking at having a program this year, I just want to make sure, and I reiterate this, you would still be a provider on probation if you came back the following year. So just keep in mind, you would remain a provider on probation until you met that minimum rate. So when the children went back off to kindergarten and they got screened again, that would determine either if you would stay as a provider on probation or come off. So those of you that are a provider on probation, I can't stress the importance of this enough, and we've talked about it, and you've seen an email that just recently went out from myself. I seen that Greg had said something out on behalf of Mr. Hutek, and I know Danielle's been in contact with you, so improvement plans. So we've been talking about improvement plan. So please know that there is some really importance to paying attention to those improvement plans. So you're going to either pick, if you're a provider on probation, there's two options. You're either going to pick curriculum or you're going to pick staff development. And under that, there's going to be an additional target area that each of you are going to have to do. Now, if you pick curriculum, keep in mind it needs to be a VPK approved curriculum. If you pick staff development, there's going to be trainings that you're going to have to do prior to the start of your VPK program. Same thing with your curriculum. You're going to have to be trained on that VPK approved curriculum prior to the start of your program. So please keep that in mind. With that being said, your improvement plan that we keep reaching out to you, keep in mind that that improvement plan needs to be approved 30 days prior to the start of your program. So if you're looking at starting your program and you're looking at having it aligned with currently the start of the children for the public school, some of them follow that calendar, we would need that improvement plan submitted and we need to get it approved before the 26th of, I believe we said it was the 26th of this month. So to share some additional information, those of you that are providers on probation have been receiving numerous emails, I'm sure, and Danielle's been in contact with a upcoming, and again, this is for providers on probation. Terry from the Florida Office of Early Learning is going to be providing a virtual Zoom call, and that'll be on June 17th to discuss the improvement plan process as well as additional information regarding the provider on probation and resources. Now, again, space is limited, so registration is required. Please reach out to Danielle McNabb, and it's DAWNIELLEMCNABB@ELCPolk.org. If you are a provider on probation and you want to register for that virtual meeting, it will be Wednesday, June 17th. You can either pick a 1 o'clock, and that one's filling up pretty quickly, or there's a 6 p.m. one that's also being offered. And again, any additional questions regarding that improvement plan process, if you are a provider on probation, please reach out to Danielle, because I can't stress enough the importance of that 30-day prior to the start of your program, that improvement plan needs to be, it needs to be approved. All right, with that being said, I'm going to move on to the payments and updates for Mr. Patrick.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to talk a little bit about the payments going forward, and really in the past. I'm going to try to answer a couple of questions with the information I'm going to give you today. We have been making several payments to the providers, which isn't a bad thing. That's a great thing, but it can get a little bit confusing. Cheryl talked about the CCDF mini grants, the infrastructure, the health and safety, the professional development stipends. And with that, OEL has given us the budget authority to spend about $438,000. So, and as she said, we already paid out the infrastructure. I'll talk a little bit more about the health and safety, but before we even did this, the coalition made the decision to help out providers, do what we could to help out providers. And we took $100,000 from our operating budget and we split it into 3 different payments over a 4-week period back in April and May to help out the providers. First thing I want to talk about is the first responder healthcare worker bonuses. And there was a question that somebody wrote that said, any word when we will start receiving our ESS funding? I assume that that's what this is in reference to. This is money that OEL has, they haven't given us the budget authority yet to spend, but this is the CARES Act funds that everybody's talking about. This money is coming down again to help out providers who are providing services to first responders and to essential healthcare workers. And in Polk County, as of June 4th, we had, looks like 402 children enrolled from this program and about 96 providers that were serving this group of children. So to answer that question, the bonuses, the April bonuses, we were a little late in processing it. We were waiting for guidance from OEL, But those first set of bonuses, which was roughly $82,000, that was actually paid out on June 5th. And the next round for May, staff is currently working on that. And we're hoping that we can pay that next set of bonuses for the ESS, for the first responders and healthcare workers by the end of next week. And that will be a payment that's made separate from your regular school readiness payment on the 20th. The next item is the child assessment differential payments. And I saw that there was another question referring to the QPS tier funding for teaching strategies and when you were going to see that. This is the 5% child assessment differentials. We did pay out that 5% for checkpoint 1. That was paid out with them in May. And right now staff they're working on the checkpoint 2 differentials, and those will go out with the school readiness payment on the 20th of the month. One thing that's not on here, and I do want to talk about, is the health and safety grant. We had, it looks like 196 eligible providers that submitted applications. Our plan is to make that payment to providers this Friday, and that payment for the providers will be $495 each. That's another $97,000 that the coalition is putting into help for the providers. And those who have filled out the application already know that this is for things like sanitizers, sterile wipes, professional cleaning services. But again, that payment, which is the second in the series of the CCDF mini grant, should go out on Friday the 12th. That's the information I have. I guess we'll move on to Mark, and looks like the Q&A is next.
All right, I'll take it, John. If we're going to go through our Q&A right now, I know some of these have been answered, and I'll just kind of call on somebody, or if you know the answer, you can unmute yourself, panelist, and you can take that from there. Obviously, the QPS funding for teaching strategies goal, John just answered that one, as well as the ESS funding. So thank you, John, for looking at those. So I'll kind of start and go through the questions, and anyone who has a question, feel free to type it in. We'll do our best to get to those. So first question, where should we let you know when we are planning to reopen? On the portal and under which tab? Karen, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so when you are letting us know when you are reopening, you can shoot even myself or your quality specialist an email, let them know if it's for the COVID closure. And in your document library, there is a attendance folder in there. You would submit your letter that you're reopening in there, but definitely make sure you shoot us an email because it does not alert us, or you can send that letter as an attachment and then send that over to me. You can send it at Karen, K-A-R-E-N, Hallman, H-A-L-L-M-A-N at ELCPolk.org.
All right, Karen, I got a couple more for you here. One, is it too late to become an SR provider for 2021 school year? Where can I get specific information about SR, such as how much you will get paid for each student, what the requirements are for families, teachers, etc.?
If you're interested in becoming a new school readiness provider, again, you can reach out to me. I know there's different questions, and we have a team that can answer the different specifics. Currently, right now, we are waiting on guidance from the Florida Office of Early Learning. So keep that in mind. We will put you on a list due to the with the class observations. But if you are interested, again, reach out to me, and we'll take your information, and then we'll get with you regarding school readiness.
And then there was another one that says, do I still have time to make changes to my contract? I'm assuming that, I don't know if they're talking about 1920 or 2021, but either one. Obviously, we haven't completed the 2021 yet. And 1920, if you still need to make a change there, you can reach out to Karen as well. and we can make those changes there. And let's see, moving on. Can you please clarify the ratio for 3-year-olds? DCF says 1 to 11, and it looks like the ELC is showing 1 to 15. Somebody want to take that one?
Sure. The ratio for 3-year-olds is 1 to 15, and I'm not sure where the information came from as far as DCF, unless maybe if there was some talk about reducing ratios during this COVID situation. There was a 1 to 10 ratio, really still is kind of the CDC is still, suggesting that folks follow lower ratios. But as far as what is required by the state for a 3-year-old, it's a 1 to 15 ratio, and we would follow the same as the coalition.
All right, thank you, Cheryl. Next question, how long are you going to pay for children missing over 3 days per month? I believe that, Mark talked about this and it's been kind of answered a couple times, but through the month of June, we are authorized to pay based upon enrollments. We do not have any information going forward as far as what it's going to look like for July. But we, like Mark said, it's our kind of general thought that, OEL will at some point stop paying based upon enrollment, and we'll go back to our, 3 days per month for excused absences. Now also, there's 3 days per month for that you don't have to have a note for, but children in school readiness also are allowed to have 7 additional approved absences. So if they have, once we get back to that, if they have anything over the 3 and there's a doctor's note, you would just upload that into the portal when you submit your attendance. Next, are there specific rules, ratios, use of masks, social distancing that we must follow for VPK, or are we able to follow what our pre-K through 8 private school does?
You want me to take that again? So at this point, we are saying that you should check with DCF or whoever you're licensed by and consult with the Department of Health as far as the guidelines put out by the CDC. We know that we've heard lots of different things, children 2 and over, possibly wearing masks, lots of hand sanitizing, hand washing. And so at this point, DCF or your licensing entity, if you are religious exempt, you need to be checking with them on those requirements. We're gonna work alongside them, and I think they're working closely with each site. They're probably gonna ask you what you do have in place, and we'll work with you to make sure children are safe. And that's really what it comes down to. As a coalition, we really don't have any specific rules for VPK or any of the groups in terms of the actual standards for health and safety. We're going to work alongside those other entities.
Thank you, Cheryl. Next, when will VPK contracts be available on the portal for 2021 year for us to begin completing? Again, I stated next week we will send an email out with specific instructions, so you will be able to start processing your application, VPK application and VPK contract next week. They'll be made available. And then a couple down, it says, what will the deadline be for submitting your VPK contract? We haven't set a deadline at this point since we haven't even rolled them out yet. But we'll try to put a deadline in that email that goes out with the specific instructions. At the same time, we know things are, very up in the air right now and changing. So, we're going to try to do our best to work with all of our providers as best we possibly can. Essentially though, the deadline will be, you have to have a VPK contract before you start your program. So whenever you anticipating starting your program, you have to have a contract in place, by that date. At the same time, we can't, once you submit your application, there is a review process. There are things we have to do to make sure everything is there in place, it's correct. So, we can't submit your application and your contract on a Friday and expect to start on a Monday. We have to process those things. So, and those things take a little bit of time. So we'll try to give you a soft deadline in that email that goes out next week. Let's see here. Question, are we able to get parent fees now? I had a child move and I was told they did not have to pay. Diane or Mary or Angela?
Yeah,
you guys-
I can answer that. If you were closed when the child moved, of course, we were just notifying providers the child was moving. But if you have a child that transferred and the parent owed co-payments, typically, we would need to get that paid in full receipt. So if you would want to call either Mary or Angela, I gave their phone numbers earlier, or call the main office and ask for one of them, they would be able to look at the case and see the specifics on that case.
Thank you, Diane. We got a couple questions about providers on probation. Karen, how do you know if you're on probation? And then also, how do you get your improvement plan in and approved?
So as a provider on probation, you would have gotten a notification from the Florida Office of Early Learning, letting you know that you are deemed as a provider on probation. Our staff know each individual that is a provider on probation, so they would have made contact with you. I will tell you that every provider that was a provider on probation did do the acknowledgement piece. So we do know that those of you that are a provider on probation, you were notified. And so you did complete that part. As far as the improvement plan process, you're going to go to the Readiness Rate website, and there was an email for those of you that are a provider on probation. There was a link that showed you where to go for that. And so you'll go through there. Again, there's a series of questions that it asks you, whether you're going to pick, again, like I said, curriculum or staff development, and then you're going to put your staff in there. Remember, it's going to have to be the directors, your leads, and your aides. So you'll put their information in there, and then you will submit it, and it will be verified. And then if changes need to be made, it'll be sent back to you. If not, then it'll say that it's been approved.
Thank you, Karen. This next one, we'll send this one to either John or Lee. What's happening with the reimbursement and the payment adjustments from 2019?
Okay, I assume they're talking about the 18-19 fiscal year with the true up that we've all heard about. And really, we just got the capability, I think it was late February, early March, to start processing those adjustments and corrections. And staff is working diligently when they're not doing the attendance reimbursement. I don't have a date. I just know that we are getting closer with each month. But we continue, and I don't want to throw OEL under the bus or anything like that, but we continue to run into issues. Even at this point in time, my staff processed 1,100 adjustments last month. They trued up 35 different providers, and then a glitch in the system caused us to lose the data. And now we're working on trying to pull that data back from the memory banks of EFS Mod. And all I can say is we are still, that is staff's priority. They hear it probably almost daily that it is a priority to get this done. So hopefully within the next month, we'll have a clearer vision of what the end time frame is going to be.
And Kenneth and John, let me just kind of add to that for a minute, because for any provider out there that doesn't understand the scope of work, basically what we're saying is that with what we lived through that year, with everybody putting all of their attendance on separate spreadsheets and submitting it to us and having that payment, we now as a coalition not only are continuing with all these grants and all these new funds that are coming in and making all of the school readiness and VPK payments that we have made with the jobs that they currently have, but now we are going to look at every transaction for every attendance for every child that's been paid for every day, every week, every month of last year, and seeing if it matches what EFS Mod says works. So it is a huge undertaking, which is overtaking a lot of time, but you know, it's something that is months in the works, and whatever the answers end up being as far as us squaring up, we're going to work with providers the best we can, as soon as we can, to get the answers that everybody needs. We know it's complex, but it's a really, really big job. and I'll just leave it at that.
All right, thank you, Mark and John. The next question, will STAR testing still be done at the beginning of the school year for all kindergarten students? Will that score count and possibly put providers on probation? We are concerned because we're online from March to May.
Do you want me to take that one, or Karen?
Sure,
I
that's
can
fine.
do it either way.
Right.
Okay, so there will be there will not be any testing this fall. So if that helps everyone with everything that's occurred, there will not be a new readiness rate in the fall. So we understand that, you know, many of the programs had to end early, and some of you were able to offer online, some weren't able to do much at all. So just so you know, there will not be that has been canceled for this year. It would resume if things go as normal, I guess, back to normal next year. Karen, if you wanted to add to that, you can add to that.
Piggyback off that. So if you were a provider on probation, you would remain as your status would remain the same, kind of like a freeze, so to speak.
All right, next question. Just to clarify, our 2021 SR contracts are not being done currently, but the 1920 SR contract will be extended to allow us to provide care for SR families. So that is correct. 2021 contracts are not out there yet, and we've received word from OEL, not officially, not in writing, but the intention is to extend the 1920 SR contracts so that you will be able to continue providing care for SR families. We don't anticipate any kind of interruption of services or anything like that. So I'll put you at ease there. But you know, once we have a little bit clear, defined instructions on 2021 as far as SR contracts go, we'll let you know. But you know, as of right now, we don't have anything for you to complete for 2021 other than just make sure your profile is active and ready to go. Next question. We reopened on June 1st and are currently at about 30% enrollment. Do I need to enter student attendance for June if all ELC parents are being reimbursed? There will be numerous absences. Please advise. Yes, the short answer to that is yes. You will need to enter your attendance as the children attend. So if the child does not attend, I'm going back in my memory here, but I believe there was special instructions on how you enter the closure, or not the closure days, but the days you're open and the absent days due to COVID. So if the ELC child is there, then you would mark them present. If the child is not there due to COVID, then you would mark them as not being there for COVID. So, but yes. Okay. The next question, will the grant for infant and toddler expansion become available again in the near future? Cheryl?
Okay, so right before the pandemic hit, we had put out the applications for an infant toddler grant to expand care because we knew that there was a need, and we certainly would like to move forward. Those funds, however, were kind of moved over to help with some of the health and safety concerns related to the pandemic. So we will put it on hold. That was something that was approved by our board, our enhancements committee. And so as we move into a new fiscal year, I assume that it's going to be a discussion that comes up again, and we'll see if we can move forward in the new fiscal year. So stay tuned on that, and we hope we can do something. We'll just have to see how things play out over the next few months. Good question, though.
Next question. For the minimum assessment threshold for contract purposes, if we were scored beginning of last year, not screened in the spring, will that score carry over to the 2021 contract, or do we need to be rescreened for the threshold score for the 2021 contract? I'll take this, Cheryl. If you need to jump in, if I say something or you want to add something to it, you can do that. But your most recent class assessment score will be the class assessment score that will carry you over into 2021, since we're unable to do those, you know, at this time. And we were, you know, obviously planning on completing a lot of class assessments over the past few months, which we've been unable to do. So whatever your most recent class assessment score is, that's the same score that will be used for 2021 school readiness contracts. Cheryl, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I'll add to it. So if your score was low and you fell into a quality improvement plan range with us, please contact Melinda. She can talk to you a little bit more, although we're limited on the information at this point. We are working, in fact, just between yesterday and today, we sent some more questions up to OEL. We're looking for some answers on how that works. Because we realize that if you're on a quality improvement plan and it's supposed to last 12 months, or you would have requested maybe a rescreening within that time period and haven't been able to do that, those are the things that we've asked for clarification on. So again, as individuals, individual providers, feel free to reach out to us and we can kind of talk through your particular situation and see if we can get some more answers if you're concerned.
Cheryl?
Yes.
Can I add, if you're wondering what your composite score is, you can go into your QPS and you can observe what your composite score is.
Yes. Good.
All right, thank you, Cheryl and Melinda. All right, next, scenario question. What if we wanted to wait to receive full CARES Act bonuses? For example, you had 2 parents on the funding and then the following month you had 4. Who do I speak with about waiting on bonuses to get the most out of my bonuses because only 3 months I get the bonuses? I know there were some changes there. John, would you like to talk about that as far as the payment goes?
I'm reading the question again, sorry.
You want me to answer it, John? I mean, I can give an answer on that. Basically, the state made the change because originally they said that you would only get paid 3 months for those bonuses, and you would pick the top 3 months that you want to get paid, which is probably what's generating that question. But the state has now come back and said they will be paying for each child for up to 3 months. So it really is no longer a 3-month period. You will get paid for those 3 months for each child. And basically the only caps now are that you can receive up to $4,000 a month, up to a cap of $12,000 for the 3-month period. And it may take you 4 months to get there for all we know. So that there's no longer the restriction that you have to choose between the months, because you will get paid for all of the children that you have with those caps.
And I'll just add to that, Mark. I do believe there is an end point at some time as far as how long that will go into the future. I believe I heard something about September, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but through the month of September. So again, it's not limited to only 3 months. It's just only 3 months per child with a 4,000 cap per month and a 12,000 total cap. All right, next question, ratio again, 1 to 11 for VPK 4 years old ratio and 1 to 15 3-year-old. Is that correct?
So just keep in mind, VPK and school readiness are separate programs. So the ratio is 1 to 11 for school year for VPK, or a 2 to 20. And then for the summer program, it is a 1 to 12.
All right, thank you, Karen. I was approved for a cleaning grant for the 2nd round of payment and I never received. Who do I reach out to for payment?
I believe they may be referring to the 2nd grant we're working on payment for this week is what my assumption is.
I was thinking it was more the first health and safety grant is how I interpreted it.
I did too. I was thinking they were talking about the universal
The
health.
2 rounds of universal health and safety grant.
Yeah.
And it looks like, it looks like there's a name there. So maybe I'll reach out to that person individually and we can get back to you.
Okay, thank you. All right, will STAR early literacy be extended over the summer for VPK?
All right, Cheryl, what's your thought on that? I know you had just gotten that information this morning.
Yes. So at this point, I don't have an answer. We're really looking at it, and just to let everyone know, and Mark, you can chime in. We've really been looking at the usage of STAR. So if we're talking about the subscription that the coalition provided for everyone, we know there's a lot on your plates, but we also know that a lot of the subscriptions weren't used as we had hoped. So we're working with Renaissance, which is the company that implements the STAR tool or created the STAR tool. And we're looking at some data right now. So once we can get a little bit better handle on that, I know as of right now, everybody has access until June 30th. And within the next few days, we should be able to send you some more information about whether or not that will be extended. For those who were using it very regularly, we're really looking at your sites and how we might be able to continue that with you. Just know that. And again, we'll be back in touch with all VPK providers so that we can give information on what's going to happen next with that.
All right, next question. This may be a repeat question. Regarding summer VPK, is the teacher required to be certified? And also, does the rule apply that they won't be eligible for the fall?
So for summer VPK, there is a difference in credentialing for the instructors. They do have to have at least a bachelor degree, but within that bachelor, there are certain requirements that would allow them to provide that VPK program. If you have questions on those credentialing, you can reach out to me. I can send you the guidance per the Florida Office of Early Learning, or on their website. If you click on the summer VPK program, if you go on the Florida Office of Early Learning website, they will tell you what the credentialing requirements are for a summer VPK provider. And then it was about the fall. I wasn't sure if we could get more clarification on that.
I'm wondering if the question is if children would be able to repeat again in the fall. I'm not sure either, but at this point, the answer to that would be no. If they've completed at least 70% of the program anyway, they wouldn't be able to do that. But I'm not sure if it's about children or teachers. So if that's your question and you have a little more information and you'd like to type it in, that would be great.
All right, I think this is regarding adjustments for 1819, John or Lee. Would it be helpful for us to submit adjustments from 1819 to make it easier?
I'm not sure what adjustments they would be submitting, to be honest, but, or if they're talking about the attendance, but my thought is anything that might help true up 1819, sure, we'll take a look at it. And it can either go to Lee Barnes or go to their respective reimbursement specialist.
All right, and this one as well, payment related. Where do we see our assessment threshold? I'm assuming that might mean the payment behind the assessment threshold.
I'm not sure what that is. Are we
talking about where do they see their class score? That's in the QPS system. Melinda just mentioned it. But if they're wondering how, John, is the payment for the assessment separate from the regular payment?
No, it's included with it, but I can, maybe Lee has a better idea of where they might see it on the reimbursement report.
We've tried looking for it. We haven't been able to separate them. So maybe on the next one that we do, we can pull it, try to find another report that shows it to us, but we can't see it on our side. It's separated.
Lee, do we have the ability to somehow or another print what they were reimbursed in their payment and get that to them to show?
We can probably pull it from the 5045 somehow, maybe separate it that way, but there's no actual report for that right now. But yeah,
maybe it's just me, but I thought that the question was probably referring to how do they know how much of their reimbursement they've gotten paid for? So if we can find a way to send some dollar amount to everybody that received the payment to say, this is what you received in assessment funds, then at least they know that that's what they've received payment for.
Okay.
All right. So we'll work on that. If the payment part was what the question was referring to, we'll work on that and see if we can't get you some more information. Whoever asked that question, if you specifically like to reach out to your reimbursement specialist, that would help as well, be able to get you that sooner rather than later. Next question, how do we get into QPS? Is that through the portal?
I can answer it. No, it is not through the portal. This is the quality performance system. This is a separate system. This is a system that your quality specialist asked you to keep your staff roster up to date. So if you're not sure how to get there, if you would email me at Melinda, MELINDA, 2 TEW at ELCPolk.org, I can send you the link on how to get there.
All right, thank you. Next question, will payment to those centers who opt to remain closed cease? Most who are closed aren't paying workers or incurring overhead costs, and it seems unbalanced that the owners, receive those funds. As far as I believe we've addressed that a couple times. We aren't sure. I mean, we know through the month of June that if you are closed due to COVID-19, you can still be paid based upon enrollment. So if you're closed, you still could receive payment based upon enrollment through the month of June, but we aren't sure if that will go any further after June. If anyone has anything they'd like to add to that.
I'll add just a brief kind of big picture from the state. Obviously that you start seeing some of the discrepancies between the folks that are incurring expenses and maybe the folks that don't have as many expenses. I think everybody still has expenses, but there are different types of funds that are coming down from the state. Some of the funds that they're using for various parts or various allocations that are coming out to the ELCs are for the purpose of trying to keep businesses afloat. Because I think the other side to it is we'd love to believe that this is a somewhat of a temporary situation. And, if many of these businesses fold, we're going to face issues across the state. And the idea is that the state wants, to continue to provide those funds so that teachers can continue to get paid and their paychecks can be protected. But I think that's the reason why they're starting to get very specific on the surveys that they're asking for the closed providers, because there are providers that are receiving those funds that are no longer paying their employees because they don't have children, and they're keeping those funds. And I think the state is questioning now whether or not they're helping keeping the economy afloat and keeping these small businesses up and running, or they're basically taking state funds and putting them into folks' pockets who are deciding that they're not paying their employees. And what does that look like? And what does it mean? And what's going to happen? Because we do know that in the event that those providers that have not opened up close their doors, and I'm not talking about just Polk County, I'm talking about the state. If they close their doors, we're going to have major serious issues across the state for lack of seats. And so it's a balancing act. And I think that the best thing that can happen is that those providers be honest about what's happening and where they're at and painting that true picture. Obviously, if you're a provider that, you were contemplating getting out of the business and time has just kind of sealed that deal for you, then I think OEL would probably just as soon say, we're not going to pay you anymore. But if you're the provider that's saying, listen, things aren't working for me right now because I keep assessing my parents, and on any given day, I've only got 5 out of 100 parents that are willing to come here, and I can't keep paying everybody the way that I have. You know, there's some things that have to be addressed, and in the long run, we're talking about what we're hoping is a short problem. And, you know, I think if this thing can turn a page by the end of the year, you know, then hopefully we can start moving. But it's just a very interesting predicament right now.
All right, thank you. We do have a couple questions related to special needs. We have special needs children who are unable to be seen by ELC for approval. How do we go about getting special needs funding during COVID-19? And then also, is a plan still required if we have been given a 504 plan from the child's parent for special needs children? Somebody want to take that?
So I'll start, but I'll probably turn it over to Melinda for a little bit more. We have created a workaround during this time while we're not in the field, and Melinda has been working with some providers. We're able to do some things virtually in order to just confirm the things that we would normally in the field, so that we're not holding up any of the process with paying for special needs children. Melinda, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the first thing, you just need to contact me so I can put you through our steps we're doing at the moment, but we still need to get the IEP or IFSP or whatever you have that's diagnosed that we can see. So we need that first. That's the first step. So if you want to just email me and I can reach back out to you and we can go from there, because I've been doing some virtual Zoom calls with some providers, so we can try to get that pushed through. And then after we're able to go back out into the field, then I will follow back up with you then. But we want to not hold it. We want to make sure we can get that for you.
All right. We have a couple VPK questions. Are we supposed to wait until the VPK contract meeting next week before completing the VPK contract? Yes, please wait for those instructions next week, and that will take you through what you need to do to complete that VPK contract. And then also, will the VPK contracts be approved in time to get prepay for August? If you are looking to get prepay for August, I would say as soon as those contracts are, you know, the information is sent to you next week, go ahead and start working on getting that completed and getting that in. As far as requesting prepay for August, as you know, prepay for August is always delayed a little bit. Typically, advance pay for VPK is given out, that month before, so we'll be paid in July. But the way the funding works, as far as getting the appropriation down from the Office of Early Learning, typically that's delayed a little bit. But there should be no reason why you would not get your advance pay for August due to contracts. So we'll be able to get that in and get that done just like we normally do. And then last question I have right now, and we're almost to 2:30, will the rate per child be increasing since the state is requiring higher class scores, etc.? Would someone like to take that?
I don't think we've heard about any rate increases at this point. John, I would probably look to you I don't know if you've got any more information there.
I don't. I'm thinking Mark might know something. I know legislation has.
We'll just pass it around.
We will.
See, who do I see?
There is something in the appropriations for increased provider payments and provider rates, but even that at our level, it requires board approval. But again, Mark can probably expand on it.
Well, I certainly don't want to dangle too much of a carrot in front of everybody, but we as staff, particularly the lead team of the coalition, met months ago and had full discussions on our rates. And ultimately, we had proposed to move forward with rate increases. And then, of course, the pandemic struck. And we were notified by the state that there were additional allocations put in through legislature this year that could be applied and potentially help boost and equalize some of the rates across the state. So the good news was we were on track to go to our board and to move forward with something like that. The bad news is that the pandemic struck, and then everybody at the state even said, don't submit for pay increases, rate increases at this point, because we are still uncertain whether or not the legislature is going to have to come back. You know, the state of Florida has suffered tremendous loss of income based on COVID when it comes to the tourism dollars and the money that goes into the state budget. So even though at one point the state has received $120 or $130 million in early childhood funding based on what occurred in the state legislature, the concern there now is will they have the budget to sustain that? So in doing that, they've come back in and said, okay, do not go with any rate increases until we can get a better picture of what this all looks like. We at the coalition do know that we certainly want to raise those rates because of all of the requirements that are going into it. As we previously said on a question and just earlier with Cheryl, you know, infants is a priority for us. We've got to make more space in our county for infant slots. But the bottom line right now is it's not rocket science. We receive a check from OEL to make these payments to you all for various things. And if we're going to add money to something, we're going to have to take money from something else. And in a sense, you're going to be robbing Peter to pay Paul. So how many slots and opportunities are you going to take away from children at this point to provide higher rates? And that's what it comes down to for us. So it's a balancing act. We know it's a priority, but we're not there yet. And we anticipate as this thing begins to progress through that we will be hearing from OEL a little bit more about state funds that will potentially allow that to happen.
All right, Mark, that was our last question. So if you'd like to, and we're 2 minutes from 2:30, so if you'd like to close us out.
Okay, well, I think this was a very good meeting. I want to thank staff. Kenneth, thank you very much. You did a great job going through the questions and kind of navigating that whole piece. And staff, I want to thank all of the VPs that had their staff come on board. And I think this was very productive today. I just did want to say that, you know, what's happening now is we're closing out the year. And there's a lot of things that always happen when you close out the year. And we're facing uncertain times and starting the new year. So we anticipate that OEL is probably going to start having some kind of a snowball effect on answers when it comes to contracts, when it comes to waivers, when it comes to the way of work for what's going to happen when the schools open, the public schools open, or the public schools don't open. And at the end of the day, I think what we know is that we're still functioning. And for providers, you know, you've got to make the decisions that you need to make as a business that protect you and protect your children. And go that way. And if you have questions about whether or not you're living within the lines or whatever, reach back to us. Because when it's all said and done, the best thing that can happen for all of you is to continue to be a successful business. And the best thing that can happen for us is that our children continue to get a high quality experience in your centers. And that's really ultimately the push. So I want to thank everybody. My gut feeling is that we will start getting a lot of answers in the course of the next couple weeks about where we're at with things with the turnover of the new year and how we're going to close out or how we're going to extend and how we're going to do our profiles that are going to feed into our contracts and what that all means. So I think a lot more answers are coming. I appreciate today's participation. And by all means, we're here, we are up and running. And if you need anything else from the coalition, please do not hesitate to ask. Do any of my lead team or anybody else on the group have anything else to share? Nope.
I did want to say real quick, we had a couple questions pop up while you were talking. Where do we sign up for the VPK meeting? No need to sign up for the VPK contract meeting. It's going to be a recorded webinar. So we'll send you a link in the email. You'll just click on that, watch the webinar, and then you'll send in an attestation that you watched it. So we won't be having a live VPK meeting. If you have contract meeting, if you have any questions, feel free to send them to us, and we can answer any questions that result from that meeting. And then also one last question, last one: our classroom size is still 9 children and 1 teacher. So
I would just say, I mean, I don't know, Cheryl, if, obviously DCF and the licensing groups are your formal answers for that, but everything we've gotten back, it all says it's all about recommendations. Everything is about what's recommended. The rules are still the rule as far as what our capacities are. Right, Cheryl?
Right. DCF ratios is what applies and what they're enforcing, but they're still recommending lower ratios. So if you can do 10-to-1, meaning, or 10 in a room, 9 children, 1 teacher, that's great. If you can't, that's understandable as well, and DCF will work with you as well. So one more thing, and it didn't come up on here, but it has come up. Since we have a lot of VPK providers on here, we have been asked, some of the staff have been asked about virtual VPK, and there is not approval for virtual VPK. So just so that's really clear to everyone, even moving forward, at this point, there is no approval for that. So we'll see where things go. Hopefully everything will work out for face-to-face, but if you had that question and were afraid to ask it, or we hadn't already answered it for you, that's the answer for now.
Very good.
All right.
Okay. I
No
think
more questions.
That's going to conclude the questions. That's going to conclude the meeting. I want to thank everybody, and to all the providers out there, we appreciate your efforts through this pandemic. Stay safe, take care of yourselves, and we are here for you if you need us. Other than that, have a wonderful day.